Hello, thank you for purchasing the ChamberGuard spray system. This video is designed to help you get maximum performance from your sprayer with some simple operational tips and also maintenance. This will help you be successful in the field with what is probably the most valuable sprayer on the market today as far as its performance. Your sprayer is going to come as you see it here. It's going to come equipped with your material feed hose. It's going to have two lines here. One is your electrical line, the other is your air. They both feed into the gun. Your sprayer will also come with several tips that are made for the end of the gun. We recommend using the black tip for probably most of your applications. The gray tip can be used if you're spraying thinner material and you want to shoot it a little further. The black tip is going to give you the biggest opening for spraying thick material. You can also purchase the optional spray wand. This actually just replaces the gun with the feeder hose for material going into the bottom of the pipe, the black wire going into the plug, and your air hose. This will allow you to reach up into the smoke chamber. It's 2 feet long. With your arm length, you can reach up 3 or 4 feet and actually put thick material up in the smoke chamber. This is a game changer. Your sprayer will also come with a set of instructions. We highly recommend that you read through those. It will give you helpful tips. You can also keep these instructions folded up in a little compartment located on the back of the sprayer. This is also a good spot back here to keep your extra tips. I'm going to actually go through a few features of the sprayer that will allow you to clean it easy and get through the process of doing a smoke chamber with ease. First of all, side of the sprayer, you're going to see your rotary feed hose. This is a circular hose that goes from the hopper to the hose that goes to the gun. So when you engage the trigger, these wheels will spin, forcing material through the hose and into the hose and up to the gun for application. When we turn this on in a moment, I'm going to show you what to look for to make sure your sprayer is operating correctly. On the other side of the sprayer, you're going to see your material feed gauge. This is located here. It is adjusted with this knob. You want to adjust it so that the arrow is in the largest circle on the gauge. That's for maximum feed of maximum material. A couple of tips to be aware of. When you're mixing material, you always want to use a clean bucket. If you have dried up material in your bucket and one of those flakes were to get to the bottom of this hopper, the hole down there is very, very small and it can clog it, which will prevent flow of material. If during the spray operation you do find that you get a clog for whatever reason, the best tip I can give you, start with taking off the tip of the gun. You can bang this on the hopper while spraying and see if you can get material flowing. If you still do not get material flowing, I recommend taking the feeder hose off of the gun, tapping it on the side of the hopper while squeezing the trigger, because this is what engages the material and allows it to flow. Tap that on the side of the hopper. If you start getting the noodle of product coming out of the end, you're good to go. Put it back on the gun and begin spraying. If in fact this doesn't solve it for you, I will occasionally take this end of the hose, put it on the sprayer, take the end of the hose that is on the sprayer, put it on the gun, and do the same thing. Just get material flowing. It's imperative that once you mix material, you start spraying immediately because the material will begin to stiffen. Another tip when you're mixing material, always wait about 10 minutes after you get it to its initial consistency, because the vermiculite that's in our product will absorb a lot of that moisture. So you want to get it to where you think it's about perfect, let it sit for 10 minutes, then add more water to get it back to where the consistency is that you look for. And a little bit later on, we'll actually mix some material and I'll let you actually see what that looks like and what to look for in a properly mixed material. I'm going to turn this on for a minute, so it is going to be a little bit noisy, but what I want you to look for when you're looking at the side of the sprayer, when I engage the trigger, you're going to see this motor rotating in here. That tells you that your sprayer is operating correctly and everything is going to flow when you turn it on. So hopefully in the video you were able to notice that the motor rotating when I squeeze the trigger. That is what engages the material flowing through the hose and starts the spraying process. In rare circumstances, should you let material dry up in this machine, this panel on the front does come off, you would actually remove the material feed hose, you would actually remove the hopper. This little panel does pop off, and this U-shaped hose inside, the rotary material hose, will actually pop off. So it can come right out, you can clean it out, and it's easy to clean. So before you get started spraying, there's a couple of adjustments you want to make sure are correct on the sprayer. One, make sure you do have the proper tip. We highly recommend the black tip. Your sprayer does come with multiple tips. The black is the largest opening and will give you the best results when spraying thick material. If you do want to spray thinner material, you can switch to the gray tip and crank up the air a little bit and thin the material out, and you can shoot a farther distance. Secondly, you do want to make sure the nut on the back of the trigger is screwed the whole way forward against the trigger. This gives you the best clearance in the gun for the thicker material. On the back of the gun, this is your air adjustment. When spraying, you're going to find that this is barely on, especially when you're spraying thick material. You're more or less going to be throwing it on the wall as opposed to some of the sprayers you might be used to, which spray at a high pressure. This is going to be a very low pressure application. The three feeders going into the gun, one is your material feed hose. This screws into the bottom and also into the machine. Your electronic connection, make sure that is connected because that is what will engage your trigger and allow the material to flow. And lastly is your air pressure. Make sure that is connected. And once you get that done, the gun is ready to go. So we're going to mix a little product for you, let you see how the sprayer works, the consistency of the mix that you should be putting into it, and just give you some tips on keeping the sprayer running. You'll generally start with a full bucket of the ChamberGuard. We do recommend you mix a full bucket at a time. You'll have a bucket of clean water. You'll also have a clean bucket to mix in. It's imperative that you do have a clean bucket to mix in because if you do have dried up material in there and any of those flakes do come off, they will lodge in the bottom of your hopper and they will stop the material flow. So again, make sure you have a clean bucket. So you're going to begin by dumping approximately 9 quarts of water into your clean bucket. Once you've added the water to the bucket, you're going to want to take your dry mix and you're going to want to take this bucket, flip it upside down. Make sure the dry mix in there is thoroughly mixed. This can also be done by rolling it. You want to make sure all of the fibers and everything in there is thoroughly mixed up before you start adding it to the water. And then we'll pick this up and we'll go ahead and start adding the dry mix. For mixing, we do recommend a paddle with the more flat blades. This creates less friction, tends to give us a more consistent mixing quality. When mixing, it's important to make sure that you mix it thoroughly so that you have no dry material in there that can possibly get stuck in the hopper. Now, a proper consistency, when you're running your mixing paddle through the bucket, you should see the material closing in behind the mixing paddle. If you're leaving a trough in the material, it's too thick. Once you get it to the desired consistency, which this seems about right, it's important that you wait 10 minutes. During that process, the vermiculite in here is going to absorb a lot of this moisture, and then you'll have to add more water to bring it back to where it was. So if you actually take this material now and dump it into your sprayer, by the time you get into the house and start spraying, it's already stiffening up in the hopper, and you're going to have difficulties. So we'll wait 10 minutes, and then we'll get spraying. So as you can see, after the 10-minute waiting period, the product has stiffened up a little bit. It is leaving a trough behind the shaft. We do not want that. You want the product to fall in behind the shaft. So we'll add a little bit more water just to thin this down just a little. Then we should be ready for spraying. So as you can see now, you can see a little bit of a trough. However, when you're mixing, it does fall in. It does close in behind the shaft. You can even put a little bit more water in this And this is about as thick as you want to go. As mentioned earlier, you can spray thinner material if you'd like. You can mix it down thin. If you just want to put a nice finishing coat up inside the smoke chamber, you can mix it pretty thin, put on your gray tip, turn the air pressure up, and you can squirt it 3 or 4 feet. However, for the application of getting the 1-inch thickness for the UL listing, you're going to want a thicker material. Before I get started spraying, I like to get a cup of water, and it can be from the water that you use to clean your mixing paddle, and I use that to wet down the inside of the hopper a little bit, and also to get a little water down inside the hose and in the bottom of the hopper. And then what I'll do is I'll turn the machine on and I'll actually cycle that material down into the hose. Now that we have a little water down in there, it's time to dump in the material. Now it's important to remember, since you did dump water in the bottom of that and you do have water in this hose can hold up to 1/4 water. So when you first turn the machine on, you're going to want to cycle this material into a slop bucket until you get the thick material flowing. Okay, we now have material flowing through the wand. And when you're doing your spraying, the air adjustment on the back, that's the off position. You're going to want to just barely turn that on because, again, you're just throwing the material out. It's not meant to have a lot of air pressure because you're applying the material usually within 6 or 8 inches of the end of the wand. Now that we got the material flowing through the system, it's ready to go. So we'll turn on the compressor and the pump. Again, you're not going to use much air pressure at all. And this is going to get a little loud, so I'm not sure you'll be able to hear me talking, but when you're done spraying, it's always important to turn the air off last because you want to make sure that you get all this material cleaned out of the end of the gun. As you can see, the capabilities of the ChamberGuard sprayer are unmatched in the industry. This is a game changer. Cleaning your sprayer after use is imperative if you want to have long-term success with your sprayer. If you don't have a hose available, you need to start with a full bucket of clean water. You're going to dump 1/3 of that water into the hopper. And then you can actually turn the machine on and use the sprayer to spray down the inside of the hopper. The cleaning process usually takes about 3 cycles. You will continue to cycle water through the machine until you have clear water flowing from the hose. In between cycles, you'll empty the machine into a slop bucket, refill it with fresh water, and continue the cleaning process. As an added tip, if during the application you do need to mix additional material, we highly recommend that you cycle some water through the machine and leave it in the hose and the gun while you are mixing. This will prevent material from drying up in the sprayer and prevent problems as you continue the job. Once you have clear water flowing from the machine in the cleaning process, it's time to use the sponge to clean the hose. Now that you've got your sprayer running clean water, you've got your hopper cleaned out, there's one last step that you want to do. The vermiculite in this material tends to collect on the inside of this hose over time, and it can cause material to flow poorly. So the last thing you want to do is use one of these cleaning sponges. These were included in your sprayer. And what you're going to do is you're going to add a cup or 2 of water to the hopper. You're going to disconnect your feeder hose from the bottom of your gun or your wand. You're going to turn the machine on, and you're going to hold this sponge down towards the bottom of the hopper where the material feeds into the hose. It's going to suck it right out of your hand. That sponge is going to flow through the hose and clean all of the residual material out of the hose. You are going to have to press the trigger to get the material flowing when you insert the sponge. And that's it. Your sprayer is ready to go for the next job.